I'd like to begin by thanking Sharon and Michael Budwick for sponsoring all of these shenanigans. Yeah, Major Shkoyach. And furthermore, for you young people, for coming out, it means the world to me. It really, really does. Even you. Yeah. Okay, so the question that we wanted to deal with tonight is, how is Pesach supposed to make me feel? How do I feel about it? How am I supposed to feel about it? And when I ask young people that question, usually the response that I get is, what? Like this quizzical look of, what do you mean? That's like asking me how I feel about blue. Like, I don't feel anything about blue. It's just blue. What kind of a question is that? Doesn't make me feel anything. That's the response. And it turns out that that's actually astounding. Like, if I was to ask you, how did going to the Taylor Swift concert make you feel? You remember that one, right? You remember where you sat, you remember who you sat next to, you remember how it felt. Don't pretend you don't know, right? You know how that made you feel. You know how that felt. Admittedly, I have not yet been granted tickets to the Tay-Tay concert, but I have seen U2, and I can't be less good. I just can't possibly be less awesome. So you remember how that made you feel. So it's not crazy to feel something, like to have an event, a ceremony, a celebration, something that you do and experience that does make you feel something. But it's understandable that you would feel a lot more from the Taylor Swift concert than you would from the Pesach Seder. That's understandable. And because, well, you say, I chose Taylor. I chose. That's what I like. That's my individuality. That's me, the human. It's not like the Jew thing. I was born that way. I really didn't have much of a say in it. I do Seder because my parents do Seder. That's what we do. We get on a plane. We go to wherever it is to tell us that we're going. It's the destination that says on the ticket. I get there, and then we do the Seder. So why would I be expected to feel anything other than constipated? Like, it's just, that's Pesach. That would be I think the way that people feel. So we could not possibly have a better time to actually talk about this, because last week, how many of you became aware of this eclipse business? The eclipse. You're aware, right? The eclipse? Again, I don't know how that made you feel either. But the eclipse, was that cool? Right? I don't know. There are a lot of people like putting on special sunglasses to look at it. Here's the way the eclipse made me feel. I want to tell you what the Gemara says about eclipses. There's a Gemara in Sukkah. And the Gemara says, well, why sometimes you get a blood moon, like the moon is red? Or why do you get a solar eclipse? Or why do you get a ring of fire eclipse? And the Talmud says, because like each one is a message. This one means there's blood and war coming to the world. This one means famine's coming to the world. This one means a lot of good stuff is coming to the world. This is very, very low-level religious thought. When you look up at the celestial bodies and you're like, oh yeah, the sun is in Aquarius and the moon is in the Pisces, and therefore that means that I'm going to grow pickles in my backyard. That's very silly. This is typical superstitious thought that you would expect of like very archaic peoples. Obviously, the Talmud didn't know any better. Clearly, the Talmud had no idea, because if it would have known, then it wouldn't say that the reason that you have eclipses is because God is giving an idea to the world. He's telling you a message. It's not a message at all. The reason we have eclipses is because the moon moves in between me and the sun. And when the moon moves in between me and the sun, that's what we call an eclipse. That's why it happens. I mean, we're just spinning around in the solar system. That's really all it is. That's all it is. The truth is, I want to tell you a crazy midrash. You've heard this for sure. Are you familiar with the midrash that God made the sun and moon the same size? You're not familiar with that? Oh, babe, you're going to love this story. So here's what the Gemara says. The Gemara says, you know what it was? It says in the Pasuk that God made et shnei ha'me'orot ha'gedolim, the two big lights. Et ha'me'or ha'gadol memshelat hayom, ve'et ha'me'or ha'katon memshelat halayla, ve'et ha'kochavim. He made the big light to be in charge of the day, and the small light to be in charge of the night and the stars. Well, you understand that that's a discrepancy in the sentence, because the beginning of the sentence said Shnei HaMe'orot HaGdolim, which means the two big lights, and then it says the big one and the little one. Well, which one is it? Is it two big ones, or is it a big one and a little one? So Gemara says, oh my gosh, you know what happens? A cool story. Here's what happens in the story. So the moon went to God, and the moon was like, God, you can't have two captains on the soccer team. There can't be two winners of the Masters. There can only be one. Yeah? Can't have two. You got to choose one. And God's like, oh, good point. Go make yourself smaller. And the moon's like, hey, That's not fair. Like what? Because I told you the truth, so you make me make myself smaller? God's like, yeah. Make yourself smaller. It's gonna be good. So the moon shrunk itself. So if the Gemara is to be believed, what that's telling you is that the sun and the moon used to be the same size, and then God shrunk the moon. Have you ever heard this story in your life? No. Gamata afilu lo? Wow. Do you believe me that the rabbis actually say such a thing? Yeah, it's believable, right? it's believable. Now let's talk for one moment about what the moon actually is. Let's understand this, a little bit of cosmology, just like the teeniest, tiniest bit. How many Earths can you fit in the sun? Like over a million.
Too many.
Like over a million.
Yeah.
Okay? Like over a million. You can fit over a million Earths in the sun. That's a fact. How many Earths can you fit in the moon?
1.
0.
1? 0? What do you mean 0?
26.
No, a
It's
lot.
bigger than the moon.
A lot?
No.
The Earth.
Isn't the Earth bigger?
It's bigger than the moon.
Yes, the Earth is bigger than the moon. Clearly the Earth is bigger than the moon. You're absolutely right. In fact, here's how you know the Earth is bigger than the moon. The moon is a satellite. A satellite is something that orbits around something else. If the moon orbits you, that means that you are larger than the thing that is orbiting you. Otherwise, you'd be orbiting it. If you're going to tell me that the moon was the size of the sun, do you understand the absurdity of that notion? That's insanity. It would not have been the moon. If the moon was the size of the sun, the Earth would have smashed into it and been crushed by its gravity. So please, don't tell me, Hashkin, Nishkin, Chainik, you're going to tell me that it used to be that the moon was the size of the sun, except to complain to God that theirs doesn't have to share power and God shrank it down. That's crazy. Okay. So now let's see just how nuts the rabbis of the Talmud are, or in fact, are not. Let's see like this. If I said to you, would you believe me? If I said that the moon is getting a little bit further away from the Earth every year, you'd believe me?
I trust you.
You trust me. Trust is a dangerous thing, Chichi. It's a very dangerous thing. But it's true. It's true. You can Google this, you do your own research. The moon is actually moving further away from the Earth. Okay. Well, you think that just started now, like when you were born? In like 2015? Like clearly not. Yes? How old is the Earth?
Millions of years old.
Millions of years old? Like billions? Yeah, like let's say 3.5 billion, give or take. Okay, whatever. I'll spot you the difference. Okay, plus minus billion. Let's say it's 3 billion years old. If it's 3 billion years old, does that mean that the moon was always where it is now, or does that mean that the moon used to be in a different place where it's not now? Used to be a different place, clearly. And if it's moving further away from you now, then that means that if you would rewind the clock, it would be closer. If it was closer, would it be bigger or smaller? That's interesting.
It would look bigger, but it would stay the same.
Very good. It would stay exactly the same size, but it would look a lot bigger to you. Well, that's fascinating. What if I was to tell you that from the human perspective, if you look at the diameter of the sun and you look at the diameter of the moon, what will you find? That's right. They're both the same. Isn't that interesting? Ha! Imagine that. The sun's farther away. So that means that when you say that the sun and moon are the same size, that's insane. They are not the same size. But if I say that they're the same size to you, not only is that not insane, that's like dead on. That's like bull. It's exact on. In fact, it's so exact on that you can have things like, eclipses. What does that mean? That means that if you take a timeline of the Earth in geo years, of the last 3.5 billion years, that means that the only time where the sun and the moon look the same size from the perspective of Earth is now. Literally just now. I mean now, like last few thousand years now. Last million years maybe now. Now, literally just now. Which means that if you were alive at the time of the pterodactyls, you would have had a very different experience of the celestial bodies. Okay. Now, if we can hold that thought in the back of our minds, I'm going to ask you another question. Okay, when's your birthday? December what? 23rd. December 23rd. All right, after the solstice. We talked about this, didn't we? What? Never mind. So, December 23rd. That's your birthday. So, the next time we hit December 23rd, you're going to be 17? Okay. Imagine that Elon makes some really, really cool rocket. And this rocket is not only good enough to take us out of Earth, but it's able to take us out of the solar system. Imagine if this rocket that he makes can take us out of the solar system. Now that we're out of the solar system, when's your birthday?
I don't know. It doesn't change.
Doesn't change, right? It's still December 23rd?
I don't know it.
You don't know it.
Well, you move like around the sun like way, or the moon, way less.
Oh, but 1 second. If we've left the solar system, are you moving around a moon?
No.
Are you moving around a sun? Are you moving around anything if you leave the solar system?
Still, you wouldn't know the day.
You wouldn't know the days. There's no such thing as a day. When you talk about time, you say, well, are you still getting older? Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm getting older, but at what rate? Well, 24 hours. What, of Earth time? Why is that significant? That makes no sense. The fact that you experience time in 24-hour periods that you call days, that you divide by 60 and divide by 60, that is so local. Because if you would leave this solar system, all of a sudden you would see that there's no such thing as 24 hours or 365 of these revolutions. It's meaningless. There's no context whatsoever. So how old are you? What is a day? What is time? It becomes meaningless. It's just after. Now, why do I make this point? Because people tend to think of time backwards. They think time is, and religion does ceremony. So it's like at this time you have to put on this kind of cloak and this kind of hat and eat this kind of food and whatever your religion, blah, 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 blah. Wrong. That's not true at all. What the Talmud is saying to you is it's saying, what do you think? You think you have one big one, one little one? This one used to be bigger than that one from the perspective of Earth. You say, well, why do you live in this time? You live in this time, which is such a small slice of geotime, so that you can experience cyclical time. It's so you can experience that, which means that you are plopped in a very specific, very local, very attuned spot, corner of your solar system, so that you can have time, so that you can have days, so that they're all perfect and concentric and integrated, so that you can have a birthday, so you can have moadim, so you can have times. Time isn't real. Time is very local. Time is a gift, literally a gift. Now, we would say, well, but time is much more defined by the sun than by the moon, because years are defined by the sun, and that's true. But the sun does not have months. The sun is static. We go around it. It doesn't change. It is what it is. It always looks exactly the same size. It rises and it sets. That's not what happens to the moon. What happens to the moon? It disappears. It literally waxes and then wanes. It goes away and then it comes back again. It goes away and then it comes back again. I'm not saying it disappears. It doesn't disappear. But as far as we're concerned, from our experience, it does. So when God says to the moon, go make yourself smaller, well, in our experience, the moon does make itself smaller because it's full and then it's not. And it gets smaller, 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 smaller until it's completely gone, disappeared, and then it starts again with a sliver. Okay. So if that's the case, when the Talmud asks, why do you have all of these crazy things happening in the heavens with the cosmos and the eclipses and this is like, oh, because this teaches you this message and that teaches you that message. You're like, that's very silly. It's just celestial bodies moving around each other and impeding your view. No, dummy. The reason you were created and put here in this neighborhood in the solar system, in this particular time of the cycle of this solar system, is so you could experience these actions in time. It's so you could experience the sun and moon this way, with these months, with these seasons, with these years. That's the point. Which means that the Torah thinks that time is very important. It's very important. And it's a gift for you. It's mamish a gift. Okay. Well, what was the very, very first mitzvah that the Jews were given as a people?
Rosh Chodesh.
That's right, Rosh Chodesh. Time. Time. We count time by the moon, not by the sun. That's the difference between us and the other nations. They don't have months. We know their months are January, February, March, April, May. Those are not, there's nothing in the heavens that shows you what month it is, whether it's July or August. There's no such animal. But there is for us. I know what day of the month it is. When I walk outside, I know what day of the Hebrew month it is by looking at the moon. Because I know that if it's a full moon, then it's already Pesach, because Pesach is the night of the 15th, and that's always going to be the full moon, period. There are no exceptions. You know that for a fact. That's the months that we have. That's the months that we're granted, and it is the first mitzvah that we get as a people. Well, let's talk for a moment about why that would be. I don't know how people understood this before we got video games, but thank God now that we have video games, like the analogy is staring you in the face. So you play this game, and as you play these first-person shooter games or these strategy games, as you play them, you unlock more achievements. And when you unlock these achievements, now you have more powers. Now you can run faster. Now you can jump. Now you can fly. Now you can shoot fireballs. You know what I'm talking about, right? This isn't like crazy. You know what I'm talking about. Okay. So essentially, it's not that there was no such thing as time before there were Jews. That's insane. Of course there was time. But we don't count the same anymore. You unlock a new achievement called cyclical moon time, which you didn't have before. This is why, if we can go back all the way to Rosh Hashanah, this is why Rosh Hashanah is not the first month. Think about it, it's insane. It's B'chodesh HaShvi'i. We spoke about this in the beginning of the year. Rosh Hashanah, the beginning of the year, is called B'chodesh HaShvi'i, the 7th month. How could it be the 7th month is the Rosh Hashanah? That's insane. If it's Rosh Hashanah, it's the beginning of the year. We're like, no, Pesach is the beginning of the year, Rosh Hashanah is the 7th month of the year. Make up your mind! What it's saying is there's a year for humans and there's a year for Jews. There are two concentric calendars that are happening simultaneously that are moving together but at different rates, like this. So if the first one is 1, the second is 7, and this is 1, then that is 7. That's what it means. It means that you unlocked the idea, the achievement of a new time. So, when we talk about Pesach, it's not about eating certain types of carbohydrates and avoiding other types. That's not the point. You have a mitzvah to talk, parent to child, father to son, about what it means that you're a Jew. We don't do that by any of the other holidays. We have other holidays. They're wonderful holidays. But what you are existentially, that's Pesach. That's when you became what you became. That's when you became a people. So you're gifted a new sense of time. And God says now, since everything is perfectly aligned, it means you will always hit this time with this month in the same configuration around the sun every single year, forever, ever. That's a gift for you. So that means that I get to connect to that. Connecting to that, we talked about Tay. Here's how I see her, and I mean this with great love and affection for all of you. I really, really do. And I understand where you're coming from. When you say, but this is an individual choice. I decided to like Taylor Swift. That's me. My Judaism, that's not me. That's just something that happened to me. Imagine you're a bird. You're a bird. You're born a bird. But you don't want to be a bird because you did not choose to be a bird. You did not decide to be a bird. You did not put in birdness. You were born a bird. It's what you are. And you say, that is not individuality. You know what I think is individuality? I like Tupac Shakur and Pee Wee Herman. So I'm going to be a bird, and I'm going to wear a do-rag and suspenders. And that's what I'm going to be. I need to learn how to ride a bike. I mean, you could do that. You could say it's all about your individualism. But the fact of the matter is, but you're a bird. You don't think flying is magnificent, glorious, unbelievable? Tapping into like what you are? So when we say it's like, well, how does Pesach make you feel? It doesn't make me feel anything. That means that I'm so disconnected from what it is that's happening on Pesach that Pesach is reduced to food, which is horrific. It's absolutely horrific. Pesach. If the first mitzvah that the Jews get is Pesach and is told through the lens of getting time, then that means how long was God waiting for this moment to happen in our earth? How long was he waiting? Forever! Since the Big Bang, and then at least 3 billion years in geotime. 3 billion years he waits until people come along, until all of these things that have to happen occur so that this can even be, so that he can have a covenant with the people, so that he can have that connection with humans. And then it happens, and we come thousands of years later, and we're like, oh yeah, matzah. It's not about the food. It's about what you are. Now, when we talk about how important that is, like how important is Judaism in your life, you say, well, I'm not that religious. I'm just not that religious. I wear a chai. But not kosher or Shabbat or this and that, the other, whatever. Listen to me. I don't know how many Taylor Swift concerts you've gone to or will go to, but one thing I can tell you for sure, who you date, who you marry, the home you build, the community you live in, the school you send your children to, the friends that you have, the camps that your family will attend, and the people that will try to kill you. are all revolving around what? Your music taste?
That you're Jewish.
You're Jewish. That you're a bird. Literally what you are. So you're like, but that's incidental. That's not what I want to concentrate on. That doesn't make me feel anything. But the concert, that makes me feel something. Or the jewelry, that makes me feel something. Or the car, that makes me feel something, because that's me. That is not you. That's not you. You know how you know Taylor Swift's not you? It's very simple. This is how I know Taylor Swift's not you. Because there's 48 million other people that think the same thing. That's how you know it's not you. It's like literally there's spoon feeding this to you in your Instas. So it gets in and it penetrates the brain, and that's it. And now you're stunk, and now you pay $1,000 to go see a teeny bopper jump up and down on a stage, which is fine if it makes you happy. It's good, whatever. I want to say that's you. That's you. That's definitive of your life. That makes a difference when you're 40. That makes a difference when you're 60. That makes a difference who your grandchildren are going to be. If I said to you that your grandchildren, what's the likelihood? Just ask yourself, what's the likelihood that your grandchildren will have a Seder? It's 100%. It's like that. What are you talking about? It's a stupid question. That's literally a stupid question. You're like, what do you mean? Okay, but consider the beginning and consider now. In the beginning, we're saying, well, how does Pesach make you feel? And the answer is nothing. And then we're saying, what's the likelihood your great-grandchildren are going to be Pesach? Like 100%. So that means that there's this, you know that your whole life and your whole future and your legacy and everything, all of your descendants, are going to be revolving around the exact same thing, the exact same moon that you are, and yet we're so disconnected that doesn't make us feel anything. That's wild. That's wild. So I think there's only one reason for that, and that's because we're not paying any attention. We're going through it. It's happening to us. So I go to the Seder, and I give Bubby a kiss, and I say hello to Aunt Sue, and I give this present, and I take that present, and that's what it becomes, and then it's reduced to the mechanics of it, and you're missing everything. You're missing the significance of what it means to have that connection, to be part of this people, to be a Jew, to have that past, to have that future. So I'm not going to tell you what I think you should feel on Pesach. I don't think it's for me to tell you what to feel. My message to you is I implore you to allow yourselves to feel on Pesach. Allow it. Think about what it means. Think about that. I want to leave you with one last thought, which is horrifying, but we're living it, so we may as well. In Egypt, the first time we ever did Pesach, we took the blood of the Korban Pesach and we painted the doorpost with blood. So that part everyone knows, even though most people have a mistake, they think they painted the outside. That's not true. They painted the inside. Because it says, V'haya hadam lachem leot, which means it will be for you a sign, not for people on the outside, it's for you. So that means that you're painting the inside of your door with blood. That's a strange thing to do, I think you'll admit. It's rather weird. Why are you painting your door with blood? So like we said earlier, it's going to be a lot of reasons. What's that? So that guy wouldn't come in. The Malach HaMaves, right? The angel of death. Surely the angel of death knows where you live, right? He's got Waze. He's got GPS. Why does he need the color coding? It's for you. It's not for him. It's for you. God knows exactly where the Jews live. If you think about what that would mean, imagine for a moment that you're sitting in a house and there's one door that goes in and out. And the door, if you're in a dark room and there's light outside in the hallway, the frame of the door shows light. And you know that outside there is light. Well, if that's the case, if you're on the inside and the frame of your door is painted in blood, what does that show you? What's out there?
Light.
Light?
Red light.
Red light. Roxanne?
Does it block it?
What is it? What did you paint it with?
Blood.
Blood. You don't have to get symbolic. It's blood. You know what's out there for you? Blood. Blood. On Pesach night, we get together with our families and we make a Korban Pesach and we sit there with the matzah and with the maror and we remember what it is that we go through as a people cyclically, as a pattern all the time. And we recognize that right outside the door, there is no safety. There's only missiles. There's only missiles. There's only blood. There's nothing else out there. Could that be more clear? I don't think that could be more clear than what you're living. You almost escaped it for another generation. But then it came to you. It's back. It's back. Who's shocked? Nobody's shocked. Nobody's shocked. On Seder night, I'll take it in 1 second. Seder night, you sit there in the house and you're safe. And you have Yeshua, you have salvation. And outside, we know what's outside. Yeah.
Yeah, but aren't we assured, like, after, I think we spoke in class about, like, the 4 different cycles? Like, at
Yeah.
a certain point, like, it's enough.
Yeah, after a certain point, it's enough. So people ask a lot, when is Mashiach coming, right? Here's the thing. Asking when Mashiach is coming is very similar to asking when are the Dolphins going to win the Super Bowl. What I mean to say, I don't mean never, because the Mashiach will happen and the Dolphins will never win the Super Bowl. Next year, next year with the only people who are also not going to win this, yeah. Oy vey. That's horrible. No. What I'm saying is like this. It's not on the schedule for the Dolphins to win the Super Bowl. It's not a when. It's an achievement. You'll win the Super Bowl when you win the Super Bowl. Mashiach doesn't come at a date. It's not a date. It's not like, oh, he's going to come Wednesday the 15th. It doesn't work that way. It's an achievement. Again, it's unlocked the same way we unlock time. It's an achievement. You have to earn it. You have to live it.
How do we unlock it? We have to do a certain amount of mitzvot, right?
So I don't think so at all. I don't think that it's about a number of mitzvot. If it was about a number of mitzvot, then the Mashiach would have come in Europe, right? Our ancestors, our grandfathers were very righteous, very pious people. They were all rabbis. So many more. Listen, what percentage of your 4 greats, grandparents, kept kosher? All of them. All of them. You know how I know? It's so simple. How do I know? How do I know your great 4 greats kept kosher? Because you're Jewish. It's very simple. It doesn't last all that long. If you dump certain pieces of the Judaism from the house, it lasts a couple generations and then it's gone. So I know if you're going to a Jewish school that your great grandparents kept kosher. It's very simple. But the Mashiach didn't come for them. So what does that tell you? So maybe the Mashiach's not about kosher. I'm not saying you don't have to keep kosher. Just saying that you can't bring it by checking boxes and wrapping leather boxes and singing songs. That's not what does it. You have to be it. You have to achieve it. You have to unlock it. You have to live that way. So it's, yeah. You talked before about chametz versus matzah. So one issue, one teeny tiny difference between chametz and matzah is that chametz is when the item itself shifts. It changes from its natural state. It was what it was, and then it changes. And the moment that physical change occurs, it can never be undone. You can't unleaven it. You can't unscramble an egg. You can't put toothpaste back in the tube. How much input did humans have in our salvation? None. You didn't do it. You didn't free us from Egypt. There is no outside force that changes anything. Things just are what they are. There is no outside. When nowadays, with what's going on in Israel, we talk a lot about what we need to do. Like, we need to attack Iran, we need to strike them here, and then we need to do this in Rafiah, and then we got to get this in Lebanon, and then we're gonna get the UN to do. This is very foolish. This is very foolish. With this, we will end. You learn from the original salvation that happened in Egypt. That happens like that, and you didn't do it. So the Jews didn't get a chance to get organized. It's not like God said, okay, you ever been to a Pesach program? You know how everybody gets the color-coded bracelet, and it tells you where to go, and where you're having your Seder, and which room to be in, and when you get the tea room time, and which concert you're going to, and who the Rabbi Daf Yomi is going to be, right? Well, obviously, we're like the kings and queens of logistics, so clearly, we're going to be very organized when it's time to... No. It wasn't you. It wasn't you, and it's not because you're so mighty, and you weren't expecting it, and you weren't ready for it, and you were not organized. So obviously, we need to do what is incumbent upon us to do. But we shouldn't expect that we're going to be the ones who are going to make it happen. We got to live the right way for us. Yeah.
Do you think that the Mashiach is like a generation rather than one person?
So Mashiach is a person. Hamelach HaMashiach is a human. But Mashiach is an era. It's an era. It's bigger than an individual.
So what are we waiting for? The dolphins.
What are we what are we waiting for to fix ourselves? You're saying why are we not fixing
Are we
ourselves?
waiting for the human or the era?
No, the human's not the problem. Every generation has a human that can be that person, that has the potential to be that person. But we haven't produced that sort of leader. We haven't gotten along to a point where we can be. Can you the Mashiach is a king. The Mashiach is a king. In order to have a king, that means that the people have to stand behind the king. You know what that requires? Agreement. Agreement. If I said to you that all the Jews agreed on who should be the king, you believe me? Absolutely not. You say you're a liar, du bist a shakran. But you know immediately that I'm a liar. It's so unbelievable that there's not a Jew on a planet Earth that would be like, you should do business with that guy. A guy who tells you all the Jews are going to vote for the same king, you'd be like, that guy's a liar. Or he's never met a Jew. The fact that we're still tearing at our own and each other's throats in the streets while what's going on in the world is going on shows you why we don't have Mashiach. It's not rocket science. You say, but if we just have a little bit more kosher, I think if we just have a little bit more kosher, we can have another 15 million Haredim that eat kosher. But I don't know that that's really solving our deeper rooted problems in terms of our civilization and how we function in that civilization. So I would think about it that way. But the point is, it's Pesach. Pesach is huge for you. The whole reason you have time, the whole reason that the solar system works the way it does is so you can have Pesach. If you take a little bit of time to think about what that means, you just might feel something. And it might be awesome. So yeah, feel about it. Chag Sameach. Go ahead.